We've been reporting on the push to restrict different types of voting across the country, but we want to take a look at how some states are expanding access after the 2020 election. On Wednesday, Kentucky's governor signed a bill doing just that. Before the pandemic, the state had some of the most restrictive voting laws in the country that included no early voting. But during the pandemic, no excuse mail voting was allowed. Several weeks of early voting were added, and vote centers were opened where anyone in the county could cast a ballot. The new bipartisan bill made many of these reforms permanent in some form. Here's Democratic Governor Andy Beshear earlier.
When much of the country has put in more restrictive laws, the Kentucky leaders were able to come together to stand up for democracy and to expand the opportunity for people to vote. This new law represents an important first step to preserve and protect every individual's right to make their voice heard by casting their ballots in a secure and convenient manner on the date and time that works best for them.
Last year's election amid the pandemic revealed new options for voter participation. Because of the virus, Vermont joined 9 other states in automatically mailing ballots to all of their voters. It's been a long-standing practice in more spread out Western states, but now Vermont is looking to make it permanent there too. Vermont State Representative Sarah Copeland Hanzas joins me now with more. She is a Democrat representing Orange County's 2nd District and joins me now from Bradford, Vermont. Representative, welcome. Thanks very much for being with us. What do you see as the case for universal mail voting in Vermont?
Well, thanks for having me. I think the best case for universal mail balloting is really the high turnout that we saw in the 2020 election. This was an emergency provision that we put in place when COVID hit because we knew it wouldn't necessarily be safe to vote in person. The turnout shattered all records in Vermont. We had higher turnout than in any other election, and 3/4 of the folks who voted by mail. And so the success of that experiment really led folks to say, hey, if it's that easy to execute an election by mail and it makes it so much easier for people to sit at their own kitchen table to make their voting decisions, why not make it permanent?
Well, in the lead up to the 2020 election, President Trump and other Republicans were heavily critical of sending out ballots that voters haven't requested, arguing they could theoretically lead to fraud. What's your response to that, and what safeguards are being put in place?
Well, I think that the most essential point for folks to recognize about the allegations of voter fraud are that they are simply unfounded. Nonpartisan analysts of elections all across the country do not find widespread and systematic voter fraud. We live in a democracy, Elaine. So the true voter fraud, honestly, is to deny a person's constitutional right to cast a ballot. And whether that's being done by denying somebody the eligibility to vote or standing between them and being able to cast that ballot, that's really the true voter fraud.
So what other voting changes do you want to see Vermont make?
So the bill that we're working on this year that has just passed out of the Senate is going to institute universal mailed ballots for all general elections. That means that folks will get a ballot in the mail, will have the option of either mailing that ballot back, dropping it off at one of the convenient drop boxes that are available in most communities in Vermont, or they could still decide that they want to go and vote on Election Day. There's another provision in there that I think is really important, and that is the notification to a voter if their ballot was deemed defective. So we're expanding the window of time for folks to process, the election officials to process those ballots. And if your ballot is deemed defective, you should get a notification so that you can come in and actually recast your ballot. We had 1,500 Vermonters who were disenfranchised in this last election because maybe they incorrectly signed the envelope or forgot to sign their inner envelope. And we want to make sure that we're not disenfranchising voters simply on technicalities like that. So it's important in a democracy that everyone have access and that every vote is counted.
Well, after the widespread concerns about mail processing times leading up to the November election, are you concerned at all, Representative, about future potential issues that could put mail voters at a disadvantage?
So I heard actually some stories of folks who are working within our postal system here in Vermont who said that, the human beings in that process were taking a look in the piles of mail and making sure that they were moving the mail ballot envelopes. They've got a red stripe on the side of them. I know that in Vermont, folks want to be able to make this work for people. But one of the things that was really important for us to allay people's concerns was making sure that we had secure drop boxes in every community. And, most Vermonters know where their town hall is because that's where they go on town meeting day, or that's where they go to renew their dog license. And your drop box should be as convenient as that.
All right, Vermont State Representative Sarah Copeland Hanzas. Representative, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.